The United Colonies, a thriving hub of interstellar commerce. As trade routes continue to stretch further across the settled systems, the demand for reliable, multi-role transports is reaching new heights. Developed by Lindan Engineering Corporation, the CG-570 Delacore-Class Freighter delivers a balanced solution, combining flexibility and the endurance needed for long-range missions. Offered in 3 specialized configurations, the Delacore-Class provides a modular platform capable of supporting a wide range of operations. The standard CG-570 cargo variant remains the popular choice. Engineered for dependable performance and high capacity, it serves both corporate logistic fleets and independent operators, efficiently transporting bulk cargo, vehicles, and merchant goods between systems. Designed for personnel transport, the CG-570T offers expanded accommodations for up to 8 passengers. Built for interplanetary shuttle duty, it delivers reliable and comfortable transit between star stations, capital ships, and planetary outposts. The CG-570M dropship is a military variant, engineered for deployment in active zones. Equipped with reinforced shielding, an upgraded reactor, and an additional dorsal-mounted remote turret, it supports rapid troop insertion and extraction. 12 forward troop bays and a fully stocked armory ensure United Colony forces are mission ready. Whether transporting cargo or ferrying personnel, each Delacore-Class freighter is equipped to defend itself. Standard loadouts feature twin Helios Mark III laser cannons and dual KLR-30 strike repeaters, delivering consistent firepower for mid-range encounters. A Railcaster 20A dorsal turret is available as an upgrade, offering enhanced coverage and support in high-risk operations. While built for the United Colonies market, the Delacore-Class has quickly earned a reputation for versatility beyond its intended roles. Its adaptability, rugged construction, and modular design have made it a natural choice for a wide range of operators. Today, Delacore-Class freighters are fielded by security contractors, militia units, and independent long-haul crews across the settled systems. In less regulated regions, it's not uncommon to see modified CG-570s used by smugglers, while the CG-570M has gained popularity among various bounty hunting factions. From core trade lanes to the farthest reaches of the settled systems, the Delacore-Class has earned its place among the most trusted freighters in operation. The CG-570 Delacore, the premier multi-role freighter, forged for the United Colonies.
Shipwrights. Welcome to another LEC build. Guess what? We got a third UC ship in a row, and easily my favorite of the bunch. So, if you've been following the channel, you'll know I've always been partial to Freestar Collective builds, but man, these UC ships are really fun to do. I'll make it a goal to balance out the faction-related builds more often, just don't ask me to do tile ship builds. Now you may not realize, but Lindan Engineering Corporation is actually a play on Radion Engineering Corporation. That's the shipyard that's famous for manufacturing some of the most iconic Star Wars ships like the YT-1300 Millennium Falcon and the CR-90 Corvette, otherwise known as the Rebel Blockade Runner. I did that because my favorite kinds of ships have always been of the utilitarian variety, like freighters and cargo haulers, especially the ones that are capable of being home ships. It's very typical of what you would see in the Star Wars universe. Han Solo converted the Millennium Falcon into his smuggling home ship, Dash Rendar did the same with his Outrider, and you have the crew of the Ghost, who converted the VCX-100 into a home ship for their operations. Since I like this ship so much, this is essentially the theme for the Delacore Freighter as well. Different variants for specific roles within the commercial market, but each with the flexibility for independent operators to use them for their own needs. Now when it comes to the interior tour portion of the video, I'm going to be showcasing all three variants, so you'll be able to see how they differ from one another. One thing that needs to be said is the upper Kontiki bridge above the HopeTech Overseer bridge isn't accessible. It's really just for aesthetics and maintaining the ship profile. The ability to have two bridges comes from the multiple cockpits mod by PYLB, which classifies additional vanilla cockpits as halves. But since it uses vanilla cockpits and bridges, that Kontiki bridge can only be accessed via ladder. And since those bridges are stacked, there's no way to access it with a ladder. You can decide whether you want the Kontiki bridge on the third level or the Overseer bridge on the second level as your main cockpit. But for my build, I just went with the second level Overseer. Now for those of you who don't use any paid mods or only use Nexus mods, building out this ship is still doable, but it won't look exactly the same because I'm using two paid mods in Badtech Subspace Warfare, which costs 200 credits, and Avantech Race Yards, which costs 400 credits. But as always, I will show you an alternative build method to get a similar aesthetic, just with different parts. Last thing, I try to keep the build process as easy as possible, but due to the sheer amount of Gillibrand hab snaps being used, things could get a little confusing with part placement. But I promise you, this build goes by pretty smoothly. In any case, always remember, if you have any questions or you get stuck anywhere, feel free to reach out to me in the comments. Alright, if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. This build has turned out to be one of my favorite ships, so it's going to be staying in the hangar for a long time. Honestly, it's going to be my main home ship for a while, just going to run a crew of 1 to 2 with a robot, and run it like a bounty hunting smuggler build. In case you missed it, I uploaded an interior decorations guide a few days ago that includes my recommended mods and decorating tips and tricks that'll optimize your interior layouts and make your ships feel more lived in. Also, I now have a shipbuilding Discord server and you're all welcome to join. I'd love to see what kind of ships you come up with, and it's a great place for all of us to talk about ship design and the game itself. The invite link is in the description. As always, feel free to reach out to me in the comments if you have any questions or build requests, or if you just want to chat all things Starfield and shipbuilding. This is Lindan, signing off. See you in the Starfield.